Today we're going to look at a really tragic story. It's one that reveals this devastating crash between societal pressure, mental health, and ancient biases. And it all leads to an act that is just unthinkable.
So, this is a story about a family of four. But behind the closed doors of their apartment, a quiet kind of desperation was brewing. A poison that, well, would eventually find its way to the dinner table.
And it all starts right here, with this one whispered line, said right after the birth of their first daughter. It seems like such a small comment, but it planted this seed of really profound disappointment, a seed that would grow into an absolute tragedy.
So let's go back to the beginning, back to that seed of disappointment, so we can really understand how a home that was once filled with so much hope could sour so completely. You can see the stark contrast here. Just 4 years ago, when their first daughter, Arya, was born, the home was filled with warmth and love. But fast forward to just 4 months ago, with the arrival of their second daughter, Gia, all that warmth was gone. It was replaced by this cold, oppressive silence. The celebration just never happened.
Yeah, this unspoken expectation, this idea of waiting for the son, it completely poisoned their home. It created this relentless feeling of failure that took a visible toll on everyone, especially on the mother, Mina. She became just haggard and totally exhausted.
And this constant grinding pressure, well, it eventually just became unbearable. It was all building and building towards a breaking point. I want you to just try and imagine the scene. A small, chaotic apartment, the constant noise of 2 little kids, and hanging in the air is this sharp, sour smell of fermenting dosa batter, which is such a perfect, awful metaphor for the family's hope just decaying. This is the environment the father, Ravi, walks into every single day.
And this is where he finally cracks. His words, they just reveal everything. He's overwhelmed by the noise, the money problems, but more than anything else, by the shame. The shame of not having a son, of failing to live up to this deeply ingrained cultural expectation. You know, Mina's response isn't a defense. It's really an admission. She feels that exact same weight, that same crushing sense of failure. She's not just physically tired. She's been emotionally hollowed out by this identity of being the woman who failed.
And in that shared moment of just complete and utter despair, the unthinkable suddenly became a possibility. A silent, deadly pact was formed right then and there.
This is the turning point. Ravi doesn't scream or shout. He just whispers this horrific solution that's born from his desperation. He even frames it like it's an act of mercy, a way to end the suffering for all of them.
Their shared hopelessness was so deep that there was no argument, no debate. There was just a look between them, a slow nod, and a silent agreement in that quiet kitchen. The decision was made. The weapon they chose is tragically common. Ravi buys something called aluminum phosphide, which is a pesticide. The clinical detail here is just horrifying. The moment it hits stomach acid, it releases a lethal gas. It's designed to kill pests, but it is brutally effective on humans.
The steps they took next are so methodical, almost ritualistic, that it makes them even more chilling. He buys the poison, he crushes it up, and then he folds it into the very dosa batter that was a staple of their family life. Then, they all sit down and share one final, toxic meal together.
But what they planned as a silent end to all their suffering, well, it quickly started to unravel and turned into a police investigation.
So at first, it looks like a terrible case of food poisoning, but the doctors are suspicious. I mean, the 2 little girls are gone, and the parents are near death. The speed and the violence of it all, it just didn't add up for a normal case of food contamination. This was the question that kicked off the whole investigation. Could this really have been just an accident, or was something far more sinister going on? And the evidence, it quickly started to paint a very clear, very dark picture. The dosa batter from the shop? It was fine. Forensic tests came back positive for pesticide in Ravi's blood and in food samples from their apartment, but the final piece of the puzzle was Ravi's own diary, which revealed a mind just consumed by depression and desperation. The tragedy was, in fact, a crime. So why does this matter? Why are we talking about this one family's story? Because it's not just their story. It's a devastating symptom of much larger, deeply rooted issues.
This case really serves as a grim and powerful reminder. It shows how these ancient cultural biases, when you combine them with modern pressures, can fester and lead to unimaginable violence, right inside the supposed safety of a family.
Ultimately, this whole thing was a perfect storm of factors. A pervasive gender bias that devalues daughters, immense societal pressure to produce a male heir, and of course, the severe, untreated mental health struggles that were born from all that pressure.
And all of that leaves us with a final, pretty sobering thought. This family suffered under the weight of silent expectations and unspoken despair. And it really makes you wonder, how many other tragedies are being born in that very same kind of silence?